Welcome, everybody, to Contracting Business Basics. I'm your host, Lori Rawlings, the Executive Director of the Plumbing and Mechanical Contractors Association of Oregon, Southwestern Washington, and Northern California. And today we're going to be doing learning module number 7 on insurance. So I'd like to hand it over to our instructor, Hank Brancasio. Hank, welcome back.
Thanks, Lori. Glad to be back. Today's an interesting one. A lot of information to get through and important information. Some people may look at insurance that, do I really need all this insurance? And we'll talk about that. But here's what I would tell you. Stuff happens. And when it does, you'll be glad you have insurance. It's expensive, but you can't live without it. It's as simple as that. As my note says here, always verify your insurance coverage with your insurance agent and company. We're going to talk a little bit about how to get an agent and where to find an agent and stuff like that. So some objectives to get through today. First objective, the easy one, is just understand all the different types of insurance. This is not like personal insurance, where if you have auto, home, and life, that's kind of the one you hear the most about. This is a little bit more complicated for businesses because you're just in a risky business. You're not making widgets here. You're not doing something that's not risky. It's the construction business, and therefore you're going to need some more specialty insurance. Understand what specialty insurance you may need, understand where to go to buy insurance, which is important. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about workers' compensation and EMR rating and how that affects your insurance costs.
Hank, what does EMR stand for?
Oh boy. I knew you were going to ask me that. EMR rating is a modification rate related to, some people call it EMR rating. They may call it a mod rating, which is, I'm trying to remember exactly what it stands for. We've got some slides later that'll talk about that. I don't want to jump ahead of us a little bit, but it affects how a contractor is rated basically for safety. Are they a good risk or aren't they a good risk? Do people get injured or don't people get injured? So without stealing my thunder for later on in this presentation, I don't want to go into it any closer to that, but it's a good question and we'll answer it later on in the presentation.
Sorry, Hank, I just looked it up. It's experience modification rating.
Yeah, there you go. And that shows up later in the presentation. So a lot of types of insurance that's listed here. And I'm not going to read these, but what I am going to do is talk through a little bit about some of my experiences where I had to use an insurance company. Stuff happens. I mean, that's the way it is. So here's a good one as it relates to insurance. This is an HR issue. You hire somebody and they're just a terrible hire, just bad hire. I mean, it happens. You try to turn them around. Maybe you do a performance review. Maybe you put them on a performance improvement plan, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. You try and you try for a year, it doesn't work out. And this really doesn't matter whether it's a tradesman or a non-bargaining employee. You have to let the person go. You fire the person for all practical purposes. They turn around and sue you for some obscure reason. Maybe they feel like they've been discriminated against in some manner or another. Now you're in court, or you can be in court. And so that's an insurance issue that you want to have insurance policies for, because that can get expensive very, very quickly from that standpoint. Property damage. This one everybody understands. You have a building and you're doing work in the building. Let's say it's a construction job, and one of your plumbers or one of your fitters does something wrong and a leak occurs in the building. Now you think, well, not a big deal. You go fix the leak. Well, if it's just a small leak and it didn't damage anything, it's not a big deal. But what happens if that damage ruins an entire floor, or it's a multi-story building and that leak runs down the building 3 floors, and now you have problems in 3 floors. So this could be, a multifamily residential type of building. Could be a hospital, could be whatever it might be. I've been involved with all of these. They get expensive quickly. You ruin a floor. I remember very much many years ago, a freeze up occurred on a Sunday in a school on an HVAC unit that was hanging above a beautiful wood gym floor. And it was not discovered until Monday morning. And it leaked all day Sunday and Monday morning. That was about a $75,000 problem that, thank God, I had insurance for. So those are types of things that can occur. Here's some odd ones that you may run into. Workers' compensation insurance. You got an employee, they get hurt on a job, happens. Even with all of the proper safety and precautions that are done, people will get hurt on jobs. It just happens. It's the nature of our business. You're going to be glad you've got good workers' compensation insurance and you've got a good insurance agent that can get you through that. These are some of the things. Now, the big one I've got kind of in the middle of the slide is professional liability, errors and omissions. So if you are starting a business, if you're buying a business, if you're running a business and you do design build work, you really have to have professional liability, because guess what? You've got an engineer working for you, they design it, they're wrong, or even one of your plumbers lays out on a design build some plumbing system in a building and it doesn't work, and you have to redesign it and rebuild it. That can get very, very expensive. It is not unheard of if it happens on a big enough job, that could cost you $100,000. So having professional liability, errors and omissions is important. It's also important if you're subcontracting your engineering to an engineering firm. Do they have errors and omissions? That's pretty common, but again, it's a very expensive thing. So insurance, when you look at it, you're going to spend a lot of money on insurance, but you got to have it because, as I like to tell people, stuff happens. Regardless of all the precautions you make, regardless of all of the steps you take to make sure things don't happen, stuff happens. It's as simple as that. The last one, which is unbelievable when I tell you the story, we did an HVAC project at a hospital for a general contractor. Years after the project is finished, the general contractor's work, there was some problems. They got some moisture behind some panels that caused some rusting and decaying of exterior panels. Had nothing to do with what we did. Zero. Electrician didn't have anything to do with it. We did the HVAC, didn't have anything to do with it. But in the general's contract to us, he has a right to basically drag every subcontractor into this lawsuit with the owner. And the owner knew that we weren't involved, but that was just, he was allowed to do that. That's what his contract allowed. And so we got dragged in along with every subcontractor that worked on the project. And that court case dragged on for years. Finally got settled. Thank goodness we had the insurance to cover it. But that's how sometimes you can get dragged into something that you had nothing to do with. So when you look at insurance and you talk to an insurance agent or an insurance company, and they suggest certain insurance, and you look at how much it's going to cost you, you may think, do I really need this? Trust me, you do. Stuff happens. Okay, some specialty insurance that you may run into. So this first item is pollution liability, which better word to call it is mold. So many large general contractors in their contract or in their specifications that you're bidding on, it'll say you have to carry pollution liability, which is mold. It's a hot subject right now in buildings. It has been for many years. It's very expensive to include it, but you have to have it, because if you get on a job and the general does something wrong and they end up with a mold issue on that job, you will be dragged into the contract. You will be dragged into this court case. And so it's one of those specialty items. You have to have it. It's expensive. And when I say expensive, that could be, that insurance policy alone could be $15,000, $20,000 for that insurance policy, depending on the size of your company, et cetera. But you got to have it. And it has a huge deductible. So even if you get a claim filed against it and you're not really to blame, it still could cost you $20,000 plus the cost of the insurance. So it's expensive. Fiduciary insurance is real simple. You, as an owner of a business or an officer of the company, could be sued or dragged into a lawsuit due to a business issue. So it's not that your business is being sued, which probably is the case. You're being sued individually, or an officer of the company or a manager of the company is being sued. So that's fiduciary insurance. Important to have. May sound like something you'll never get involved with, but you will. it's potential there. And then specialty trade. So I ran a business that did sprinkler work. Many of the insurance companies I dealt with would not insure my sprinkler business. So I had to go outside to basically a third-party insurance company, because many insurance companies, due to the risk and liability, do not want to provide insurance for sprinkler systems or fire protection systems for buildings. So that's another one. If you're doing something really unique, you need to divulge that to your insurance company, because they may say, well, wait a minute, we can't insure you for that. You're going to have to find another insurance company to do that.
Hey, Hank. So,
Yes.
why is sprinkler insurance so difficult to obtain? Like, what exactly is it about sprinkler work that
Well, it's a
is
life safety system, Lori.
okay?
And so that's number one, hit parade. Number two, you're piping this water system all over a building. And it's not, if a sprinkler system ever goes off, this is not nice, clean water that's coming out of there. This is water that may have been sitting in the pipes for a very long time. So that's an issue, a lot of damage. When a sprinkler goes off in a building, it causes a lot of damage. Now, obviously, if there's a fire and a sprinkler goes off, it's the least of the damage, right? You burn the building down, or you get 2 floors completely soaked with water. That's not where the problem lies. The problem lies, what happens if the sprinkler system goes off and it shouldn't have gone off? Number one, what happens if it goes off and it doesn't work properly? That's another big deal. So it's a life safety system. It's kind of looked upon as a very high risk system, much greater than, say, a plumbing system, or much greater than an HVAC system, like hot water, chilled water being piped to the building. It is kind of unique from that standpoint, and there is a premium you pay for that insurance.
Great,
Okay.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah.
So where do you go to get insurance? So I'm starting, let's just do this. I'm starting a business. Okay, I understand you, Hank. We got to get insurance. Where do I go to get insurance? Well, 2 places to go. One way to go is to go directly to an insurance company that sells insurance directly to the end user, you. Direct writers, not very common, but there are some insurance companies out there that do that. The more typical way to do it is you go find an insurance agent that sells commercial lines of insurance, and they sell it from many companies. So you might go to an agent. That agent may represent 5 insurance companies, might represent 10 insurance companies. So they're going to go out to these multiple insurance companies and try to find the best deal for you. What makes the most sense for you? So a direct purchase might be, if you were a homeowner, I'm going to go to State Farm. So if you go to State Farm, the insurance you're getting is State Farm. Or if you go to Allstate, it's Allstate. They're not looking at all these different avenues out there. That's the insurance you're getting. And so you're going to pay whatever they sell it for. On the other hand, if I go to an independent insurance agent, they may represent 5 different insurance companies. And so now they're going to go and try to find the best deal that fits your business, which is important because everybody's business is a little bit different. I haven't read at the bottom there, a good agent will be an advocate for you when claims arise. I cannot stress this enough. You could go with a really good insurance company, get a bad agent, and you will be thrown under the bus pretty darn quickly. You have to find an agent that is going to fight for you with the insurance company. Insurance companies in general do not like to write $50,000 checks. It's as simple as that. Despite the fact you're paying $100,000 for the insurance, they don't like to do that. And so you need an agent that's going to really go to fight for you with the insurance company when a claim is submitted. And that's important to understand. Be aware of that. It's a combination of, am I working with a really good insurance company? And do I have a good agent that's really going to help me when a claim occurs? Because you never know this until a claim occurs. And what you want to do, as I would tell people, every market, there's probably at least 6 insurance agents in that market that focus on the construction business. I don't care what market it is, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Milwaukee, it doesn't matter. You've got to find an agent that can help you. And that's the important part. Go talk to other contractors to find out who they're using. I cannot stress this more than enough. And whether it doesn't always necessarily have to be another mechanical, go to electrical and see who are you guys using as an agent. Go to a general contractor. Who are you using for an agent? Those folks are using insurance agencies that deal with the construction business, and therefore you're going to get somebody who understands all the things you're going to be involved with.
That's a great point, Hank. And it's kind of similar to the point you made when we were talking about financial record keeping. Talk to other people in your kind of business about what professionals they use. They're usually very happy to share information about who's good in the market.
Workers' compensation EMR rating, EMR experience modification rate. As I said, Lori, it was in here. You were stealing my thunder a little bit. Or mod rating, modification rating, is assigned to your business, affects the cost of workers' compensation. Here's the one thing you have to understand. There's a lot of information on here, and you can read it. A rating of 1 is considered average. So if you looked at all of the mechanical contractors in your marketplace, a rating of 1 is average. If you're above 1, you are paying a premium for that insurance. If you're below 1, your insurance is discounted. What that means is if you're above 1, it usually means you have a bad workers' compensation, you got a lot of injuries, not good safety practices, a lot of guys not working at times during the year. That's going to drive that rating up. And we're going to get into that in the next slide. On the other hand, if you're really safe, and this is where safety comes into play, if you've got a really good safety program, you're really emphasizing we got to work safe, you don't have a lot of injuries, that rating will go down. And so that's important to understand that as you look at workers' compensation and EMR rating. Okay, so as I said, a mod rating 1.1 would increase your rate by 10%. And this is pretty simple. Mod rating of 0.9 decreases it by 10%. Now you say, well, what's 10%? Well, it's a big deal when you might be paying $100,000 for workers' comp insurance. You might be paying $200,000 for workers' comp insurance. If you let that mod rating spin out of control, and let's say it's not 1.1, it's 1.2, 20% more on $200,000 in insurance is $40,000 more you're paying versus all you needed to do was be safe. All you needed to do was manage this effectively. So I think it's important to understand that you can control this. This is the one insurance that you really can control. If you can manage your employees and your workflow in a safe manner, it can really help you reduce that cost. And as the last bullet says, the less losses you have, the safer company that you're in. The calculation and credits are given off of your manual rates for workers' comp. Factors affecting your insurance premium, state codes, class codes. I mean, this varies depending on what state you're in, where you're working, what line of business are you doing? Are you plumbing only? Are you steam fitter only? That affects how this is calculated. I paid more because of fire protection. At one time, I had a architectural metals business, which is fancy metal roofs and other things. And I paid a premium because these guys were falling off roofs all the time. And so they were injured all the time. And we always had people injured. And my solution was the amount of work we were getting with that division was so small. And I was paying more in insurance premiums and workers' compensation. I finally sold it. I got rid of it because it was just costing me too much money from that standpoint. In red, the bottom, a good, safe working culture and safety program can have a direct impact on injuries and losses, and therefore direct savings in dollars on your business. You can control this. This is the one thing, if you manage this effectively, this can drive your costs down from that standpoint. I will tell you, when I first took over this mechanical business, our mod rating was 1.1 and climbing. And it looked like it was going to go to 1.2. And we put some real safety features, worked closely with our insurance agent to help us, paid a safety consultant to come in. And within 3 to 4 years, we had driven that from creeping from 1.1 to 1.2, all the way down to like 0.75, which was a big savings. You're talking, 30, 40% less for workers' comp, which is a lot. We were paying a lot for insurance premiums. So you can control this. The whole safety thing, this is the one thing where don't poo-poo all the safety stuff you need to do. You need to manage this effectively.
And that's something that will help with your cash flow. I'm assuming going way down on your mod rating like that really helped with keeping your cash flow positive, right, Hank?
It affects your cash flow and it affects your profit. Why let $20,000 or $30,000 of profit go out the window when you can control it and add to your bottom line? So you need to take it seriously because it is a serious issue. Now, a good insurance agent can help you with this. A bad insurance agent, not going to do much to help you. But if you find a good one who can help you with this, this is a good way to start. And if you're starting a new business, you want to start off as a safe business. You don't want to let this spin out of control. If you're buying a business, go find out what their EMR rating is. Go find out what they're spending on workers' compensation. Go find out how many workers' compensation claims have been filed against this business, because it's a good thing to understand going in with your eyes open. Health insurance, non-bargaining employees. So all of the bargaining employees, the health insurance or the health program is driven by union funds. Simple as that. You're paying for that. You don't have to worry about that. But let's say you've got 5 employees and they're not part of the bargaining employees. So you might be able to obtain health insurance for non-bargaining people through your local union. You got to check with your union on that one. And Lori, do you know if you can do that with Local 290?
Yes, that is possible. Local 290's health fund does allow employers through something called a participation agreement to cover their non-bargaining unit employees through Local 290's health fund. So it is an option. It may not be the most cost-effective option, but it is an option.
When I took over this mechanical, that's how we had it, but it's expensive. And there was a reason we did it. At some point, I finally reached the threshold where I said, I think we can go away from that and go get our own health insurance. And so I would suggest deal with your insurance agency. And I would also remind you that the same agent that's handling all of your insurance needs may or may not be able to do health insurance. Sometimes this becomes kind of specialty, but that's not a problem. He probably, or she can probably suggest to you, we don't do health insurance, but you can go to these agencies, they do health insurance. So it's kind of a different market completely. And you want to get different quotes from insurance agents. Don't be afraid to go back out to the market if you're dealing with health insurance, because health insurance is expensive and it's complicated. And if you feel that that price is starting to creep up, go back out, get your agent to go back out to the market and get a better, more competitive price. Some conclusions. Insurance premiums can be your single highest business expense aside from labor. So just think about that one for a second. If you've got a business and you've got $1 million in labor, small business, you got $1 million in labor, insurance is going to rival that by the time you get done. It's the highest thing you might have other than labor. And I cannot stress this more. A good insurance agent is a valuable advocate for you and a great external partner to help you. And surprisingly, what I would find out sometimes, I would get an issue would come up. I wouldn't even know it. And I would call the insurance agent and they would go, Hank, you have insurance for that. Don't hire an attorney separately. We'll take care of that for you, which is great. There's a lot to be said with a good insurance agent, and don't go cheap here because this could cost you in the long run from that standpoint. And finally, at some point in time, you'll have an insurance claim of some type. I don't care what you do to prevent this. It will happen. Absolutely, positively, stuff happens and this will happen. I always thought I was conservative, wouldn't take too much risk. It will happen. You will end up in an insurance claim and somehow or another. I mean, I'll give you, as a conclusion of this, we were doing work on a roof of a cold storage building, and it was all of their control panels for their air conditioning were up on the roof. And I had a service guy, this is an unbelievable story, didn't latch the control panel properly on a roof, left it open. We had a thunderstorm that night. Everything in his control panel got wet and shorted out. Now, all of a sudden, we had a problem because it was cold storage and it was affecting the refrigeration systems in the building. So a little tiny mistake like that, thank goodness, we got out there like the next morning when a customer called us and we got the refrigeration system working, even though it took us a couple of weeks to rebuild these panels. But everything in that warehouse, had the refrigeration system not worked, could be worth millions of dollars. A mechanical contractor, if you don't have the right insurance, you cannot afford that unless you're this massive mechanical contractor who can, and got lots of cash that can get through this. So insurance is expensive. It's important. And just remember, stuff happens.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the information, Hank. This has been really helpful.
Thanks, Lori.
All right. We look forward to seeing everyone in our next learning module.